I was personally sent by my brother into a living hell, under the guise of rehabilitation. 3 years later, they retrieved a shattered shell, my right leg a prosthetic, my eyes artificial, every inch of my skin etched with marks from that inferno. At the banquet, the fake heiress was once again pushed down by me, crying that her hand was injured and she could no longer play the piano. My brother roared publicly, "Are you blind? If you don't need your eyes, you can donate them." I calmly removed my sunglasses, revealing those hollow artificial eyes. "How did you know I was blind?" The entire banquet hall fell deathly silent. It was only then that they realized their biological daughter, abandoned by them for 3 years, had already been tortured beyond recognition. Later, they knelt begging for my forgiveness, crying that they would give me everything, even driving away the fake heiress. But I simply turned away, walking toward that ordinary couple who had always kept their door open for me. "Dad, Mom," I said softly. "Let's go home." The day I was brought back to the Sioux family was a drizzly afternoon. 3 years had passed. Exactly 3 years since my brother Adrian sent me to that remote mountain village for rehabilitation. When the car door opened, I subconsciously shrank my shoulders. This motion was a conditioned reflex developed over these 3 years. Every time someone approached, it meant a new round of beatings or insults was about to begin. "We're here, get out." Adrian's voice was as cold as winter ice. I groped the edge of the car door, slowly shifting my body. My right prosthetic leg made a faint friction sound as I moved, and I tried to control it to avoid drawing attention. "Hurry up, don't dawdle," he urged impatiently. I lowered my head, looking toward the direction of the voice with my artificial eyes. Hollow, lifeless eyes that saw nothing. But I knew he was there, my former brother, who now regarded me as a venomous snake. As I stepped out of the car door, I tripped slightly and nearly fell. A hand grabbed my arm but immediately flung it away as if touching something filthy. "Be careful." Adrian's voice held no warmth. "Serena is home today, so watch yourself and don't pull any tricks." Serena. The fake heiress who had occupied my life for 18 years and still refused to let go after I returned to my biological family. I nodded without speaking. The villa's front door opened, and I smelled a familiar yet strange scent, expensive incense, the aroma of genuine leather sofas, and the taste of home, if this place could ever be called home. "Adrian, you're back?" A gentle female voice sounded, with light footsteps approaching. "Is this Lana?" I turned toward the voice, trying to make my expression appear calm. "Serena, she was here." "Serena, stay away from her," Adrian warned. "I'm not sure what she's plotting now." "Brother, don't be like that." Serena's voice was full of sympathy. "Since sister is back, we should treat her well. The past is past." Her hand gently rested on my arm, and I instinctively shuddered. "Look, she's still scared," Serena said softly, loud enough for Adrian to hear. "Sister, don't be afraid, I won't hurt you." Sister. That word stung me. When she was still the Sioux family heiress, I was in the countryside with my foster parents, not wealthy, but cherished like a little princess. It wasn't until my 18th year that a DNA test revealed the truth. I was the Sioux family's biological daughter. How naive I was then, thinking I had found my real family, believing there would be more love. I joyfully returned to the Sioux family, unaware that what awaited me was Serena's jealousy and Adrian's prejudice. "She doesn't need your sympathy," Adrian said coldly. "Lana, listen up. Mom and Dad aren't home today, but I've told them you're back. They agree to give you a chance, provided you've truly reformed those bad habits." I raised my head, looking at him. "What bad habits?" I asked, my voice hoarse and unfamiliar even to myself. I hadn't spoken normally for so long. During those 3 years in the countryside, I spent most of my time in silent endurance of beatings. "You're still pretending?" Adrian's voice suppressed fury. "Jealous of Serena, framing Serena, even trying to push her down the stairs. Lana, how can your heart be so vicious?" I wanted to laugh, but my facial muscles no longer obeyed. I hadn't done any of those things. But when Serena cried pitifully, and the evidence was presented one by one, no one believed me. Not even my biological parents. I understand. I finally said just that. Serena sighed softly. Brother, stop it. Sister just came back, let her rest. Is her room still kept? Of course it's kept. Adrian said. But not on the second floor anymore. The guest room on the first floor has been prepared, she'll stay there. The first floor guest room. The room farthest from the master bedroom, once used for temporary nannies. I'll take sister there. Serena volunteered. No, I don't trust it. Adrian refused. Rose, take her to the room. A middle-aged woman's voice responded, then a hand pulled my arm. Miss, follow me. I was led through the long corridor, footsteps making faint sounds on the polished marble floor. Rose's hand was strong, almost dragging me along. This is it. She pushed open the door and led me in. Your luggage is already inside. If you need anything, ring the bell for me. The door closed behind me. I stood in place, slowly extending my hand to begin groping the space where I would live. The room wasn't large, a bed, a wardrobe, a table. The window should be opposite, as I felt the faint light coming through the glass. I walked to the bedside and sat down, my hand stroking the rough bedsheet fabric, vastly different from the silk sheets in the room I stayed in 3 years ago. It didn't matter. I lay down, curling up my body. The interface of my right prosthetic leg faintly ached, a wound left from being hit with an iron rod by Eric in the village last week. The doctor said I was lucky, only the prosthetic was damaged, with inflammation at the interface. If it had been a real leg, it would have been ruined long ago. Closing my eyes, the darkness was no different from when they were open. But at least, in the darkness, I could pretend I was still whole. A week after returning to the Sue family, my parents came back. I heard their voices from the living room, Richard's deep and authoritative, Grace's gentle and elegant. And Serena's sweet laughter, clear like silver bells. Dad, Mom, you're finally back. Serena missed you so much. This child, it was only half a month in Europe. Grace said indulgently. Half a month is still long. Serena cooed. By the way, Sister Lana is back. The living room suddenly fell quiet. How is she? Richard asked, his voice carrying a subtle complex emotion. She doesn't look well. Adrian replied. But she brought it on herself. If she's truly reflected over these 3 years, we might consider forgiving her. I want to see her, Grace said. My heartbeat suddenly quickened. 3 years since I was sent away, they hadn't visited me once, hadn't made a single phone call, hadn't sent a letter. Now, they wanted to see me? Footsteps approached my room door, and a knock sounded. Lana? Are you in there? It was Grace's voice. I got up, groping to open the door. Mom, she might still be sleeping. Serena's voice came. But I had already opened the door, facing the direction of the voices. There was a gasp. Oh my God. Your eyes. Grace's voice trembled. My eyes. Right, they didn't know yet. When Adrian picked me up, I was wearing sunglasses. During this week at home, I tried to avoid appearing in front of him. Today was the first formal meeting. What's going on? Richard's voice became serious. I started, but didn't know what to say. She's pretending to be pitiful, Adrian said coldly. Don't be fooled, Mom and Dad. This must be her new trick. But her eyes. Grace approached closer, I could feel her breath. They look, without focus. I lowered my head. I'm just not feeling well. See, she admitted it. Adrian seemed to have caught something. Acting again. Lana, when will you be honest? Serena gently pulled Grace's arm. Mom, don't worry too much. Maybe sister just needs time to adjust. After all, she stayed in the countryside for 3 years. She was reminding them that my 3 years in the countryside was their collective decision for punishment. "All right," Richard finally said. "Since you're back, behave yourself. You'll come to the Zhao family's banquet next week too. Remember, don't disgrace the Su family." Banquet. My heart sank. "Dad, sister might not be suitable." Serena pretended to advise. "That's exactly why she must go," Richard said firmly. "Let her see the world, and let everyone know that the Su family hasn't abandoned our biological daughter." I had no choice. On the night of the banquet, I wore a simple black dress and was meticulously dressed up by Serena. She personally applied makeup for me, saying it would make me look more spirited. "Sister, why is your skin so rough?" she said regretfully while applying foundation. "You must have suffered a lot in the countryside? But it's okay, I'll take care of you from now on." Her fingers brushed across my cheek, and I held back from shuddering. "Eyes. I'll put sunglasses on you," she said. "That would be more appropriate." Thus, at the brilliantly lit banquet, I wore sunglasses, leaned on a cane, starkly out of place among the glamorous crowd. Serena fluttered through the crowd like a butterfly, playing piano, singing, earning bursts of applause. She was the pride of the Su family, beautiful, elegant, talented. And I was the unspoken stain. "That's the Su family's biological daughter? Why does she look like that?" I heard she was jealous of the adopted daughter and was sent to the countryside for education for 3 years. "She does look quite abnormal." The murmurs pierced my eardrums like needles. I found a corner to sit, trying to minimize my presence. Until Serena found me. "Sister, why are you here alone?" Her voice was sweet as she sat beside me. "Are you unwell? Do you want me to accompany you?" "No need," I replied briefly. "Don't be like that, we're family." Her hand rested on my arm. "You know, I'm actually grateful to you. If not for you appearing, I wouldn't know I wasn't biological. But now, Mom, Dad, and brother are still so good to me, I feel so lucky." I didn't speak. "But sister, why did you do those things?" Her voice suddenly lowered, carrying grievance. "I know you're jealous of me, but I've never wanted to take your things." "Why did you push me down the stairs?" I sharply turned toward her, though I couldn't see anything. "I never pushed you." "You still won't admit it now?" Her voice carried a sob. "You know, that day I almost died. If not for brother arriving in time." "Serena, I didn't do it," I repeated, my voice cold and hard. How can you be like this?" She suddenly stood up, her voice louder. "I kindly wanted to reconcile with you, but you." Then, I heard a cry and the sound of glass shattering. "Ah! My hand!" The crowd quickly gathered. "What's going on?" Adrian's voice sounded. "Brother, sister, she." Serena sobbed. I kindly cared for her, but she suddenly pushed me, my hand was cut by broken glass, and I have a piano recital tomorrow. "Lana!" Adrian roared. "Are you blind? How can you not see someone right here? If you don't need your eyes, you can donate them." The surroundings fell silent. I slowly stood up, facing his direction. Then, I gently removed the sunglasses. Those hollow, lifeless eyes were exposed under the lights, exposed to everyone. "How did you know I was blind?" I asked, my voice calm as if discussing the weather. Adrian was stunned. Richard and Grace pushed through the crowd, their faces turning pale instantly upon seeing my eyes. "Lana, your eyes." Grace covered her mouth, tears bursting forth. Adrian raised his hand, seeming to want to slap me. I didn't dodge, just gazing at him with those sightless eyes. His hand stopped midair. Everyone was stunned. Grace was the first to react. She rushed over and hugged me tightly, crying and shaking all over. "Lana, what happened to your eyes? Who did this? Tell Mom, Mom will avenge you." Richard also came over, his trembling hand stroking my face. When did this happen? Why didn't you tell us? Seeing this, Serena shrieked. She's pretending. Mom and Dad, don't be fooled by her. She's the best at acting. But this time, no one paid attention to her. Richard turned and roared at Adrian. What are you standing there for? Call the driver. To the hospital. Now. I was escorted out of the banquet hall, with Grace's suppressed sobs and Richard's urgent instructions in my ears. Before leaving, I turned my head, looking toward Serena's direction. Though I couldn't see, I knew she was there. Her face must be ugly. The hospital examination room was bone-chillingly cold. I lay on the examination bed, allowing the doctors and nurses to handle me. Grace held my hand throughout, her hand trembling. The patient has multiple old fracture traces, right leg is prosthetic. Oh my God, this wound infection is severe. The doctor recorded while examining, his voice full of shock. Eyes, bilateral eyeballs missing, fitted with artificial eyes. Body has numerous scars, whip marks, burns, cuts. Grace's cries grew louder. How could this be? Richard's voice was hoarse. Adrian, didn't you say it was just sending her to the countryside for rehabilitation? This is called rehabilitation? Adrian stood in the corner, silent. But I could feel his gaze on me, something in that gaze shattering. The patient is severely malnourished, anemic, and has pneumonia symptoms. The doctor continued. Needs immediate hospitalization. Treat her. No matter what, cure her. Richard almost roared. I was transferred to the VIP ward. The nurse changed me into hospital clothes and treated my wounds. Grace wanted to help, but when she saw the crisscrossing scars on my body, she nearly fainted. Lana, my daughter. She knelt by the bed, holding my hand and sobbing uncontrollably. Tell Mom, who exactly did this to you? Mom will never let them go. I remained silent. Speak, Lana. Richard's eyes also reddened. Was it those people in the countryside? Dad will call the police and arrest them all. I slowly turned my head, my hollow eyes toward their direction. No need, I said. It's no longer important. How can it not be important? Grace almost screamed. My daughter was tortured like this, how can it not be important? Because it's in the past. My voice was eerily calm. 3 years, over 1,000 days and nights. Every day enduring beatings, hunger, insults. I slept in the cowshed, fighting animals for food, no quilt in winter, no mosquito net in summer. My eyes were poked blind with wire, my leg broken with an iron rod. But all this is no longer important. The ward fell deathly silent. Why didn't you seek help? Adrian finally spoke, his voice dry. Why didn't you tell us? I looked at him. Tell you? Did you ever give me a chance? On the day I was sent away, you said without your permission, I wasn't allowed to contact anyone. I don't remember the Sioux family's phone numbers, write letters? I didn't even have paper or pen. Even if I did, the letters would be intercepted. I didn't know it would be like this. Adrian's voice trembled. I just wanted you to reflect. Reflect on what? I asked. Reflect on why I exist? Reflect on why I returned to my biological parents? Reflect on why I stole everything from Serena? No. Grace cried. We never thought that. But you did it, I said. 3 years ago, when Serena said I pushed her down the stairs, none of you believed me. You looked into my eyes and said, how can you be so vicious? Then, I was sent away, like discarding a piece of trash. Richard sat heavily in the chair, hands covering his face. We were all wrong. He murmured. The nurse came in to give me injections, sedatives and nutrients. The effects came quickly, and I fell into a deep sleep. In my dream, I returned to that mountain village. Eric's fists landing on me, the widow's spit on my face, the village chief's son's hands roaming my body. Beast. The cheap trash the Sioux family doesn't want. What are you glaring at? Dig out your eyes. Leg broken? Serves you right. Who told you to be restless? I woke up screaming, covered in cold sweat. Lana? Had a nightmare? Grace's voice sounded, she had guarded the bed all night. I panted, groping to sit up. Don't move, you're on 4. She held me down, wiping my forehead sweat with a towel. Mom is here, no one can hurt you anymore. I didn't respond, just turned my head toward the wall. In the following days, the Sue family took turns guarding at the hospital. Adrian came most frequently, but he spoke little, just sitting in the corner chair for hours. Serena came once, bringing flowers and a fruit basket. Sister, are you better? Her voice was sweet. I'm so worried about you. I didn't respond. The doctor said your eyes will never see again, she continued, her voice carrying hypocritical sympathy. What a pity, your eyes were so beautiful before, just like Mom's. Get out, Grace suddenly said, her voice cold and hard. Mom? I said get out. Grace stood up. Serena, from now on, without my permission, you're not allowed near Lana. Mom? How can you do this? Serena's voice carried a sob. I'm your daughter too. Are you? Grace looked at her. Then let me ask you, 3 years ago, was it really Lana who pushed you down the stairs? Serena was stunned. Of course it was her. Mom, don't you believe me? I believed you too much before, Grace said. But now, I'm starting to doubt many things. Get out, now. Serena ran out of the ward crying. Grace sat back by the bed, holding my hand again. Lana, Mom is sorry. Mom swears to find out everything, all who hurt you will pay the price. I closed my eyes. Too late. The damage was done, the scars left. Your guilt meant nothing to me anymore. 2 weeks after hospitalization, the doctor allowed me to go home for recuperation. The Sue family sent a dedicated medical team to accompany me, and my room was moved back from the first-floor guest room to the original bedroom on the second floor. That room that once belonged to me, but I had only lived in for less than 3 months before being forced to leave. Everything has been rearranged according to your previous preferences, Grace said cautiously. If you don't like it, we can change it again. I stood at the door, surveying the room with my hollow eyes. I couldn't see, but I could smell the fresh paint, feel the soft wool carpet, hear the curtains gently swaying in the breeze. Thank you, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. Lana. Grace hesitated. Mom and Dad want to talk to you. I was led to the living room. Richard, Grace, Adrian were all there. Serena was absent, which surprised me a bit. Lana, sit. Richard's voice was much softer than before. I groped to sit down, hands on my knees, waiting for them to speak. We've investigated some things, Richard said with difficulty. About your situation in the countryside these 3 years. I didn't respond. That village, the people we sent reported that the villagers said you worked trash the Sue family doesn't want, sent there for punishment. Grace's voice choked. No one knew you were the Sue family's daughter, they all thought you were a criminal. Who told them? Adrian asked, his voice tense. I gently shook my head. I'm not sure. On my first day there, the village chief said I was a bad seed from the city, to be properly educated. Richard slammed the table. Someone must have deliberately spread rumors. Lana, sending you there was Adrian's decision, but we never said to abuse you. Dad means. Adrian paused. Someone took advantage of this opportunity to deliberately torture you. Who would do that? Grace asked, but her voice already held the answer. We all fell silent. Serena, Richard said with difficulty. She strongly suggested sending you to the most remote place, saying only that way could you thoroughly reflect. She also proactively arranged the contacts. Impossible. Grace interrupted him. Serena is willful, but not so vicious. Mom, wake up, Adrian said. Since Lana came back, Serena changed. No, actually, she's always been like this, we just didn't notice. I want to ask her personally. Grace stood up. At that moment, the door was pushed open forcefully. Serena stood at the door, face pale, eyes red and swollen, obviously having eavesdropped for some time. You're all suspecting me? Her voice was shrill. Just because she looks pitiful now, you think I'm the bad guy? Mom, Dad, brother, I've been with you for 18 years. Her? She's only been back a few days? You're abandoning me for her? Serena, no one said to abandon you, Richard tried to soothe her. We just need to clarify the truth. The truth is she's acting. Serena pointed at me. She's seeking sympathy. Look how good she is at pretending now, acting all detached from the world. But who knows what vicious plans she's plotting inside. I sat quietly, facing her direction. Serena, my eyes can't see, I said calmly. My leg is fake. Every scar on my body is real. If this is acting, the price is too high. You deserve it. Serena blurted out. The living room instantly became terrifyingly quiet. Serena realized she said the wrong thing and immediately covered her mouth. I didn't mean that. Then what did you mean? Adrian stood up, walking toward her step by step. Serena, tell me, are you really unrelated to Lana's suffering in the countryside? Serena stepped back, tears surging. Brother, even you don't believe me? Am I that kind of person? Why would I harm her? Because you wanted me to disappear, I said softly. From the first day I returned to the Sioux family, you hated me. Because I'm the biological one, I threatened your position. You're talking nonsense. Serena screamed. I didn't. Then why did you fall the second day after I came back, saying I pushed you? I asked. Why always say in front of Mom and Dad that I was jealous of you? Why suggest sending me to that remote mountain village? Why, after I was sent away, never defend me once? The series of questions left Serena speechless. I just... She stammered. Enough, Richard waved tiredly. Serena, go back to your room. Until things are cleared up, don't see Lana again. Dad. Serena looked at him in disbelief. Listen to your dad, Grace's voice was light but firm. Go back. Serena glared at me viciously, though I couldn't see, I could feel the hatred in that gaze, then she ran upstairs crying. Grace sat beside me, holding my hand. Lana, Mom is sorry. Mom swears to find out and give you an explanation. I withdrew my hand. No need. Lana. I said, no need. I stood up, groping toward the stairs. I've gotten used to my current life. Not seeing is fine, fewer troubles. Back in the room, I closed the door, leaned against it, and slowly slid to the ground. My hands trembled. 3 years, I finally said those words. But strangely, I didn't feel relieved, only deeper fatigue. Faint footsteps came from outside, someone lingered at the door for a moment, then left. It was Adrian. The man who was once my brother. Now, he was just another stranger. In the following weeks, the Sioux family's atmosphere became subtly tense. Serena was effectively under house arrest, Richard suspended all her social activities and credit cards. Adrian spent almost all his time investigating the events from 3 years ago. And I became the quietest presence in this house. I rarely left the room, spending most time in the chair by the window, though I couldn't see the view outside. The medical team came daily for checkups and rehabilitation training, teaching me how to use a white cane, how to live in darkness. Grace accompanied me almost all day, trying to make up for the lost 3 years. She read novels to me, described the flowers in the garden, talked about my childhood at the foster parents' home, those past events she never participated in but longed to know. Your foster parents must have loved you very much, one day, tired from reading, she said softly. I heard they educated you well. I nodded slightly. They are good people. Can we meet them? Grace asked cautiously. I want to personally thank them for raising our daughter so well. I was silent. 3 years ago, when I was sent back to the Sioux family, my foster parents opposed it. They said blood doesn't mean everything. If I wasn't happy, I could come home anytime. But how silly I was then, thinking biological parents' love would be stronger, thinking finding roots would bring belonging. I left them without a proper goodbye. They might not want to see you, I finally said. Grace's voice choked. I understand, we have no right. At that moment, the door was knocked. Adrian stood at the door, holding a file. Mom, Lana. His voice was light. I've found some things. Grace had me sit down, herself nervously twisting her fingers. Adrian took a deep breath. 3 years ago, sending Lana to the countryside was indeed arranged single-handedly by Serena. She contacted a distant relative who knew the village chief. She told them Lana was a troubled girl needing strict discipline, and gave them money. Grace covered her mouth, tears falling. Not only that, Adrian continued, his voice suppressing anger. During Lana's 3 years in the countryside, Serena would remit money to the village chief every few months. After each remittance, Lana would suffer more severe abuse. The last remittance was half a year ago, a particularly large amount, and shortly after, Lana's eyes had the incident. The file was slammed on the table. The village chief has admitted it, Adrian said. He said Serena instructed them to teach a lesson, best to make Lana never dare return. The room fell deathly silent. Call the police, Richard's voice came from the door. He stood there unknowingly, face ashen. Immediately call the police, sue Serena for intentional injury. No. Grace suddenly shouted, but immediately realized what she said, explaining in panic. I mean, after all, she's the daughter we raised for 18 years. But she almost killed our biological daughter. Richard roared. Look at Lana. Look what she's become. This is all thanks to Serena. Grace cried, looking at me helplessly. Lana, what do you hope we do? All eyes fell on me. I sat quietly, fingers unconsciously rubbing the handle of the white cane. I hope for nothing, I finally said. Do as you wish, it's unrelated to me. How can it be unrelated to you? Adrian said urgently. You're the victim. So what? I turned toward him. Punishing her, will my eyes regain sight? Will my leg grow back? Will the scars on my body disappear? I stood up, groping toward the door. Lana. Grace tried to hold me. I want to be alone for a bit, I said, then left the room. In the corridor, I heard Serena's door slam open. She rushed out. Lana. Are you satisfied? She screamed. You've ruined everything I had in this home. You vicious woman. I stopped, back to her. I ruined your life? I asked softly. Or did you ruin mine? You intruded into my life first. Serena cried out. I was living fine, Mom, Dad, brother all loved me. You suddenly appeared and stole everything. What did I steal? I turned, hollow eyes facing her. Returning to my biological parents, is that stealing? Serena, you didn't belong here originally. Your biological parents are still alive, you have your own home. That's not my home. She hissed. That's a poor person's home. I should be the Sioux family miss, the one being pampered. So you had to ruin me? I asked. Making me like this now, are you satisfied? Serena suddenly quieted, then I heard her cold laugh. Yes, I'm satisfied. She said. At least, you're more miserable than me now. You're blind, crippled, disfigured. Even if Mom and Dad pity you, so what? They'll never love you like they love me. Because you're defective, and I am perfect. Footsteps came, it was Adrian. Serena, what are you saying? His voice was full of shock and disappointment. Serena was stunned, obviously not noticing his approach. Brother, I heard everything. Adrian's voice was ice cold. So this is the real you. Grace and Richard also came out, their faces full of pain and disbelief. Serena. Grace's voice trembled. Do you really hate Lana that much? Serena looked at them, suddenly laughed, that smile twisted and mad. Hate? Of course I hate. I hate her for taking everything from me. I hate you for neglecting me because of her. I hate this unfair world. She pointed at me. What right does she have? A country bumpkin raised in the countryside, what right to become the Sioux family eldest miss? She's unworthy. Richard sighed heavily, as if aging 10 years instantly. Pack your things, leave this home, he said. From now on, you're no longer my daughter. Serena's face turned pale instantly. Dad, you're driving me away? Didn't you always want to find your biological parents? Richard said indifferently. Now you can go. We'll give you some money, enough for you to live. But from now on, you have no relation to the Sioux family. Serena collapsed on the ground, wailing. But this time, no one helped her up. Grace came to my side, gently embracing my shoulders. Lana, let's go home. Home? I raised my head, gazing with sightless eyes at the dome of this luxurious villa. This was never my home. Never was. After Serena was driven out of the Sioux family, the whole house suddenly became much quieter. The Sioux family tried various ways to compensate me: expensive clothes, jewelry, the best medical care, even inviting top domestic eye experts, hoping to restore at least some vision. But it was all too late. The artificial eye expert told me my optic nerves were severely damaged, even transplanting eyeballs would be futile. As for the leg, the prosthetic was already my best option. At least, you're safe now, Grace repeated this every day, as if it could alleviate her guilt. But I didn't feel safe. Every night, I still woke from nightmares, covered in cold sweat, screaming for mercy. In the darkness, I couldn't distinguish if I was in the Sioux family's luxurious bedroom or that filthy cowshed. Adrian began accompanying me daily for rehabilitation training. He became unusually patient, completely different from the cold brother in my memory. How do you feel today? He supported me as I practiced walking in the garden. The doctor says your balance is recovering quickly. Okay, I replied briefly. Lana. He hesitated. I know it's too late to say this now, but I really regret it. I didn't respond, just focused on the path underfoot. If time could turn back, I definitely wouldn't send you there. He continued. I would try to understand you, believe you, protect you. But time can't turn back, I finally spoke. Moreover, even if time turned back, you would make the same choice. Because you believed Serena, not me. He was silent, the hand supporting my arm tightening slightly. You're right, he finally admitted. I was blinded by prejudice then. I thought Serena was kind, and you were jealous. I was wrong, terribly wrong. We reached the bench, and I groped to sit down. You know? I said softly. In the first year in the countryside, I hoped every day for you to come pick me up. I thought it was just a misunderstanding. If explained clearly, you would understand I was innocent. Adrian sat beside me, I could hear his heavy breathing. In the second year, I began to despair. But occasionally still fantasized, maybe waking one morning to find it all just a dream. I continued. In the third year, I no longer fantasized. I began to accept reality. I was abandoned by family, no one would ever come to save me. Sorry. His voice choked. The third year's winter was particularly cold, as if not hearing his apology. The cowshed roof leaked, snow drifted in. I had no thick clothes, could only curl in the haystack. Eric said if I was willing to serve him, he'd give me a quilt. Adrian's breathing stopped. I refused. So he dragged me into the snow, poured cold water on me, saying it would make me sober up. My voice was calm, like telling someone else's story. That night, I thought I would die. But the next morning, I woke up, found myself still alive. From that day, I understood no one would come to save me, I could only survive on my own. Stop. Adrian pleaded. I turned to him. Why not say? Aren't these what you wanted to know? How I became like this now, isn't that what you've been investigating? We don't want you to suffer. But I suffer every day. I stood up. Every breath, the wounds hurt. Every step, the prosthetic reminds me of that past. And you want to compensate with material things and apologies, thinking that can make everything disappear? I groped for the white cane, preparing to leave. Lana, wait. Adrian grabbed my arm. I know we haven't done enough, but please give us a chance to make up. Make up for what? I asked. Time? Health? Or the heart that once held expectations for you? I shook off his hand, slowly and firmly walking back to the house. Grace stood at the door, obviously having heard our conversation. Her face was full of tears. Lana, Mom. I'm tired, want to rest, I interrupted her, walking past. Back in the room, I closed the door, slid to the ground against it. Hands trembling, breathing rapid. I said those words, but didn't feel satisfied. Those memories gnawed at me like venomous snakes, whether said or not, they were there. A soft knock came from outside. Lana, there's a guest. It was Richard's voice. Your foster parents are here. I jerked my head up. Foster parents? How did they come? I almost ran downstairs, though running was difficult for my current condition, but I didn't care. In the living room, I heard familiar voices. Where is Lana? I want to see her. It was foster mother Mary's voice, anxious and firm. Ms. Mary, please wait, she's coming down, Richard tried to soothe. 3 years. You lost my daughter for 3 years. Now tell me she's become like this. Foster father Daniel's voice choked. If we knew you'd treat her like this, we'd never let her come back even in death. I stood at the stairwell, fingers tightly gripping the railing. Dad. Mom. I called softly. The living room instantly quieted. Then, I heard rapid footsteps approaching me. A pair of warm hands cupped my face, a familiar scent with faint osmanthus fragrance enveloped me. Lana? My Lana? Mary's voice trembled. Your eyes, they said you. She couldn't continue, just hugged me tightly, crying heartbrokenly. Daniel also came over, his large hand stroking my head. Child, you've suffered. In my foster parents' embrace, my 3 years of strength instantly collapsed. I wailed like a child, all grievances, pain, despair pouring out in this moment. Sorry. I repeated. I should have listened to you. I shouldn't have left. No, it's Dad and Mom who didn't protect you well, Mary cried. We thought you'd be happy returning to your biological parents, we were wrong. The Sue family stood aside, watching this scene with complex expressions. Grace was also crying, but this time, she didn't approach. After crying enough, Mary helped me sit on the sofa, holding my hand throughout, as if afraid I'd disappear again. Daniel turned to Richard, expression serious. Richard, we came today to take Lana home. Richard's face changed. Home? This is her home. Home? Daniel sneered. A place that tortured her like this, can it be called home? A family that allowed the adopted daughter to harm the biological one, can it be called home? That was a misunderstanding. Grace tried to explain. Misunderstanding? Mary stood up, voice trembling with anger. My daughter is blind, leg broken, body full of wounds, and you tell me it's a misunderstanding? If it was your biological daughter standing here today, would you say it's a misunderstanding? Grace was speechless. We found out it was Serena, Adrian spoke. She's been punished, driven out of the Sue family. Punishment? Daniel shook his head. Driving out is punishment? She turned my daughter into this, she should be in prison. We've called the police, Richard said. The police are investigating. If evidence is solid, she'll face legal sanctions. Mary took a deep breath, calming down, but her gaze firm. Anyway, today we're taking Lana away. She needs real family care, not staying in this place that hurt her. But Grace wanted to say something, but Richard stopped her. He looked at me. Lana, do you want to go with them? All eyes focused on me. My foster parents' hands tightly held mine, their palms warm and familiar. On the other side, the Sue family awaited my answer, their eyes full of expectation and fear. I recalled those cold lonely nights in the countryside, recalled the warm little house of my foster parents, how they always saved the best for me, their reluctant tears at parting. I recalled the indifference and prejudice after returning to the Sue family, Serena's hypocritical smile, the despair when sent to the countryside. The answer was obvious. I want to go home, I said softly. Go home with Dad and Mom. Mary's tears surged again, this time joyful. Daniel nodded heavily. Good, let's go home. Wait. Adrian suddenly shouted. Lana, give us a chance, we really know we were wrong. I turned toward him, hollow eyes gazing at him. 3 years ago, you had many chances, I said. But you chose to believe Serena, chose to abandon me. Now, I no longer need your chances. Grace finally couldn't hold back, kneeling before me. Lana. Mom begs you, don't go, give Mom a chance to make up. Seeing her kneel before me, my heart ached for a moment. But only a moment. Too late, I said softly. Some hurts can't be made up for. I turned to my foster parents. Let's go. Mary helped me stand, Daniel carried my luggage. Actually, not much luggage, just a few clothes and some medical supplies. We walked toward the door, the Sue family following behind, not daring to stop us. Just as I was about to step out, Richard suddenly spoke. Lana, no matter where you are, you'll always be my daughter. His voice was hoarse and aged. Everything in the Sue family will be yours in the future. If you're willing, you can come back anytime. I didn't turn back. I don't need everything from the Sue family, I said. I just need a home that truly belongs to me. We left the Sue family villa, got into the old car my foster parents drove. The car started, driving away from this place where I stayed less than a month, yet it felt like exhausting a lifetime's energy. In the rearview mirror, I saw the Sue family standing at the door, their figures growing smaller, finally disappearing from sight. I turned my head, facing forward. Though I couldn't see, I knew there was light ahead. My foster parents' home was on the other side of the city, an ordinary but cozy neighborhood. 3 years, and it had hardly changed. The hallway still had that faint disinfectant smell, the door still had that crooked family portrait I drew as a child. Watch the threshold, Mary reminded softly, helping me step in. Familiar scents rushed in, the tea fragrance Daniel loved, the cooking oil smoke from Mary, and the fresh jasmine on the balcony. This was where I grew up, every inch of air filled with memories. Your room is still as it was, Daniel said. Your mom cleans it every week, saying you'll come back. My heart was deeply touched. I was led into the room, fingers brushing familiar desk, bed, bookshelf. Though I couldn't see, I knew the position of every item, every detail. I want to be alone for a bit, I said softly. Okay, you rest, Mary said quickly. Mom will cook, make your favorite braised pork. After they left, I groped to sit on the bed, face buried in the pillow. The pillowcase was sewn by Mary herself, with small flowers she embroidered, just like in my memory. I was finally home. The real home. The following days were calm and peaceful. My foster parents cared for me meticulously, helping me adapt to life in darkness. Mary relearned Braille, reading to me daily. Daniel modified the home facilities so I could move freely. I began learning massage, a common occupation for the blind. Though the Sue family offered me a large sum, enough for a worry-free life, I refused. I want to be self-reliant, I said. My foster parents respected my decision, but they still secretly saved some money, saying it was my dowry. No matter what you become, you're our most precious daughter, Mary always said. Meanwhile, news of the Sue family came through media and occasional calls. Serena was formally prosecuted, evidence conclusive, sentenced to 7 years in prison. On the trial day, no one from the Sue family attended. The Sue Corporation's stock price plummeted due to the scandal. Richard aged overnight. Adrian came a few times, wanting to see me, but was always stopped at the door by my foster parents. "Lana doesn't want to see you," Daniel said each time. Until a rainy afternoon, I heard arguing outside. "Mr. Daniel, please let me see her, just once." It was Adrian's voice, with a sob. I said no. "Dad, let him in," I spoke. The door quieted, then opened. Adrian came in, soaked through, looking wretched. "Lana." His voice trembled. I sat in the chair by the window, facing him. "What is it?" He was silent for a long time, then said, "Serena. Serena committed suicide in prison." I was slightly stunned but quickly regained calm. "Is that so?" "Attempted, she was saved," he continued. "But her mental state has big problems, transferred to a mental hospital." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I think you should know," he said with difficulty. "Also, Dad. Richard had a heart attack, hospitalized. Doctors say the situation is not optimistic." I clenched my hand. "So?" He wants to see you one last time." Adrian's voice was full of plea. "Lana, I know we have no right to ask anything, but he is your biological father after all." The rain outside pattered, tapping the glass. I recalled Richard's stern face, the complex expression when he occasionally looked at me, his last words, "You'll always be my daughter." "Which hospital is he in?" I finally asked. Richard lay in the VIP ward, body full of tubes. Not seen for 3 months, he was emaciated, completely unlike the once commanding entrepreneur. Grace guarded the bedside, eyes red and swollen, standing abruptly upon seeing me. "Lana, you came." Her voice choked. I stood at the door, not approaching. Richard opened his eyes, seeing me, a glimmer in his murky eyes. "Lana." He laboriously raised his hand. Adrian gently pushed me. "Go." I hesitated, but finally walked to the bedside. Richard's trembling hand gripped mine, that hand cold and weak. "Sore, Each word seemed to exhaust all his strength. "Dad was wrong." I didn't speak. "Sue family, all to you." He continued. "All is yours." I shook my head. "I don't want it. Please." His tears fell. "Accept my compensation." "Some things can't be compensated," I said softly. "But I accept your apology." A relieved smile appeared on Richard's face, his hand gradually loosened. The monitor emitted a piercing alarm, doctors and nurses rushed in for resuscitation. Grace collapsed on the ground, crying almost to fainting. Adrian leaned on the wall, face pale. I stood aside, quietly watching all this. An hour later, the doctor announced Richard's death. The funeral was simple, only family and a few close friends attended. I wore sunglasses, standing between my foster parents, listening to the pastor's eulogy. Grace looked at me several times, hesitating. After the funeral, she finally came over. "Lana, in your dad's will, he left all the property to you," she said. "Including the company, real estate, shares, everything." "I've said, I don't want it," I repeated. "But donate it," I said. "Donate to the Blind Foundation, or help people hurt like me." Grace was stunned, then smiled bitterly. "You really are like him, stubborn, obstinate." "No," I gently shook my head. "I'm not like anyone. I'm just myself." Adrian came over, holding a file. "Lana, one more thing," he said. "Serena, she escaped from the mental hospital yesterday." I slightly frowned. The police are hunting her, he continued. But she's dangerous, be careful. Why would she still come for me? I asked. I have nothing left. Because you took everything from her, Adrian smiled bitterly. In her twisted perception, it's you who caused her to this point today. My foster parents tensely grabbed my hand. We'll protect Lana well. Grace looked at us, eyes full of envy and regret. Can I come see you occasionally? She asked cautiously. Not disturbing you, just look from afar. I was silent for a while. Up to you, I finally said. But I won't return to the Sioux family, nor accept anything from you. This was already the biggest concession I could give. Leaving the cemetery, rain started again. My foster parents opened the umbrella, protecting me to the car. In the rearview mirror, I saw Grace and Adrian standing in the rain, gazing at our departing direction, motionless. Like two lonely statues. 3 months later, my massage parlor opened. The shop wasn't large, but clean and cozy. My foster parents handled everything, I just needed to focus on work. Gradually, I had some regular clients, life slowly getting on track. Grace came occasionally, always sitting in the opposite cafe, watching from afar. She never disturbed, just watched for a while and left. Adrian took over the Sioux Corporation, donating most profits to charities, fulfilling my wish. Life seemed finally calm. Until that night. I closed the shop late, my foster parents went to an old friend's gathering, agreed to pick me up, but were delayed. I decided to walk home myself, the distance wasn't far, the road familiar. Darkness wasn't scary to me, it was already part of my life. But I overlooked that darkness can also hide danger. Crossing an alley, I heard footsteps behind. The footsteps were light but rapid, clearly following me. I sped up, but the prosthetic limited my movement. Suddenly, a hand covered my mouth from behind, another choked my neck. Don't move. A familiar and mad voice rang in my ear. Or I'll kill you. Serena. You're finally alone, she sneered, dragging me deeper into the alley. I've waited for this day a long time. I struggled, but her strength was surprisingly great. You ruined everything for me. She hissed. Now, I'll ruin you too. I felt cold metal against my neck, it was a knife. You think you won? Her voice twisted and mad. No, I'll win in the end. After I kill you, everything in the Sioux family is still mine. Mom, Dad, and brother will forgive me, after all, I was with them for 18 years. They won't forgive you, I said calmly. You killed their biological daughter, they'll only hate you. Shut up. She screamed, pressing the knife tighter. It's all your fault. If you hadn't appeared. If you weren't so greedy, if you accepted reality, you'd still be the pampered adopted daughter of the Sioux family now. I interrupted her. You ruined it all yourself. Serena was stunned, then laughed madly. You're right. I ruined it all. Then let's ruin together. I felt her raise the knife. At that instant, shouts came from the alley entrance. Lana. Stop. It was my foster parents and Adrian's voices. Serena panicked, the knife slightly deviated. I took the chance to swing the white cane back hard, hitting her calf. She screamed, loosening her hand. I fell to the ground, groping toward the voices. Don't come over. Serena screamed, waving the knife. I'll kill her. I'll kill you all. Sirens sounded, police arrived. What followed happened quickly. Serena was subdued, handcuffed, and taken away. My foster parents rushed over to hug me, checking if I was injured. We got an anonymous call saying you might be in danger. Daniel's voice trembled. Scared us to death. Adrian stood aside, face pale as paper. Obviously, that anonymous call was from him. Thank you, I said to him. He shook his head. I owe you. The ambulance came, I was sent to the hospital for checkup, except for a minor cut on the neck, no major issues. But after this incident, everything changed. The court reheard Serena's case, adding escape and attempted murder, sentencing her to life imprisonment without parole. Adrian resigned from company duties, handing the business to professional managers, and began global travels, saying to seek inner peace. Grace, one clear morning, came to my massage parlor, not sitting in the opposite cafe, but walking in. "Lana, can I talk to you?" she asked, voice cautious. I nodded, letting her sit. I'm leaving," she said. "To Switzerland, there's a sanatorium there. Doctors say my depression needs long-term treatment." I didn't speak, just looking at her. "I know, I can never make up for the hurt to you," she continued. "But I hope you know, I truly love you, from the moment I knew you were my daughter. I was just blinded by 18 years of emotions." She held my hand, that hand trembling. "I don't seek your forgiveness, just hope you can occasionally think of me, remember you have a mother, in some corner of the world, praying for you every day." I felt warm liquid drop on my hand, her tears. "Take care," I finally said. She cried out, hugged me tightly, then turned to leave. I heard the door close, her footsteps fading away. From then on, she really only occasionally sent postcards from Switzerland, with simple greetings, no request for reply. And my life continued calmly forward. My massage parlor expanded, taking in a few blind apprentices. My foster parents were healthy, helping in the shop daily, enjoying it. I learned to play piano, a special one for the blind, through touch and memory. On weekends, I'd perform on the small stage in the shop, customers liked it. One autumn afternoon, I was playing piano when the doorbell rang. "Welcome," I said habitually. Footsteps approached, then stopped by the piano. I finished the last note, raised my head. "Played very well," a familiar voice said. "Adrian." Not seen for 5 years, his voice had matured a lot, also calmer. "Thank you," I said. "Massage? Or just passing by?" "I want to talk to you," he said. "If you're willing." I nodded, leading him to a quiet corner. "I've been to many places," he began. "Africa, South America, Antarctica. I saw the world's vastness, also my own insignificance." I didn't interrupt, just listened quietly. "In every place, I'd think of you," he continued. "Thinking if I hadn't done that back then, where you would be now, what you would look like." "I'm fine now," I said. "I know," he smiled. "I've observed for a long time before daring to see you. You're stronger than I imagined." We were silent for a while. "Mom. Grace passed away last month," he said suddenly. "She left peacefully in her sleep. Among her belongings, there's a diary recording her longing and regret for you." My heart trembled slightly. "The funeral was simple, as per her wish, her ashes scattered on the Alps," he said. "She said it's closer to heaven there, maybe she can hear your piano music." I clenched my hand. "Lana, this time back, I want to ask you one thing." Adrian's voice was soft. Can I still be your brother? Not the Sioux family young master, not the corporate president, just an ordinary brother, occasionally coming to see you, knowing if you're well." The wind outside blew in, carrying autumn's chill. I recalled childhood, the neighbor at foster parents' home had a brother, always protecting me from bullying. Back then I often thought, if I had a real brother, would he pamper me like that? Then I returned to the Sioux family, had a brother, but he brought me only hurt. Now, this brother asks me, if we can start over. "It's getting late," I finally said. "I still need to prepare for evening business." Adrian understood my meaning, he stood up. "I understand." His voice had undisguised disappointment. "Anyway, thank you for seeing me." He walked to the door, hand on the handle. "Bro." He turned abruptly. I faced his direction, showing the first true smile in 5 years. "Next Sunday, come home for dinner. Dad and Mom made dishes you love." Adrian stood there, tears silently falling. "Okay," he choked. "I'll definitely come." The door opened and closed, footsteps faded. I sat back at the piano, fingers lightly touching keys. Music flowed out, soft and warm. Some pains never fully heal, some scars never disappear. But perhaps, in the river of time, we can learn to coexist with them. We can learn to forgive, not forgiving those who hurt us, but forgiving the self that was once hurt. We can learn to move forward, carrying scars, also carrying hope. Because even in darkness, there is light. Even if unseen, warmth can be felt.